Before we get started here, we want to give a big shout out to our friends over at OmniLab have been taking communication to a whole nother level. We're living in a time right now where you can't be visiting your friends and your family, checking in with your loved ones. Their telecommunications robot is allowing you to visit them with the most simplistic of ways, being able to dial right into a 4K camera that also has web conferencing abilities. So, visiting loved ones as a group is possible to check in with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever it may be. So, if you're looking for the best possible deals to make sure that you are taking advantage of this wonderful tool to take you into 2021 and beyond, make sure you check that description and below for OmniLabs, their telecommunication robot.
And also FCD Box. If you guys have not heard of these guys, I'm sure you guys have heard of Wolf launchers. You guys have heard of all these different launchers that you could add to your Amazon Fire devices. These guys have their own exclusive launcher that you could add to your stuff, which takes care of so many good things and just make it very, very accessible just at the touch of your hands. Make sure you guys do go to fcdbox.com or check the description below to see how you guys can get hooked up with the latest and greatest launcher.
And also, our friends over at Buzz TV have been making waves in the streaming community last year, and they're continuing to take it to a next level this year. They have some really interesting devices that we talked about on our Beyond the Streams interview with them. So if you missed that, make sure you check it out. And in the description below, there's going to be coupon codes so that you guys will continue to get the best deals from Buzz TV. So make sure you check that in the description below.
And getting a VPN, guys. VPNs are so important right now. There's just so many things, people getting hacked, people getting ISP letters and DMC takedown notices, and just securing your information. You literally never know when somebody is watching you. So make sure you guys do get a VPN, because you do want to make sure you guys are protected. VPN does so much more than just protect your privacy. It gives you that peace of mind. And the same way how some of you guys have an antivirus to protect your computer from those attacks, getting a VPN just makes sense. Make sure you guys do check the description below. We have several links in there that we do recommend and we do like, we've tested. So make sure you guys do get yourself protected. It's all in the description below. Make sure you do get that protection.
Make sure to subscribe to our channels and the podcast, and always leave us a comment or a review to let us know how we're doing and what kind of content you're looking forward in the future. With all that being said, guys, let's start the show.
And welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Stream. So just recently we were able to go to, I think it's called, TechFluence Part 2 Next Level? Would it be the second?
It's the second one they've had, yeah.
Yeah, and we were asked to do a behind the scenes or backstage interviews with a lot of people, and we had we couldn't stop this conversation, but we had to stop the conversation during TechFluence. So we have Patrick from GoSun. How are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great. This is gonna be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be great, man. I think we were talking about and everything lined up perfectly. We're talking about chicken wings and Next Level being hungry, and and then you showed up and it was hold on a second, this is a sign here.
Yeah, we were recording for over 4 hours straight that day. It was insane. So I guess I was getting a little hungry by the end of the day, but we were super excited when Patrick came on. We started geeking out over your website, and then you started showing us the stuff, and we couldn't even help ourselves at that point. I think we were limited to 10-minute time slots.
Yep.
For those TechFluence, and we knew that wasn't enough time, so we had to get Patrick here on the podcast.
Yeah. So, Patrick, if you can give us a quick rundown of who you are and what do you have there with you?
Cool. Yeah, GoSun, we bring portable power to people. We focus on solar appliances that help meet essential needs. Solar is typically far away up on a rooftop, and you don't interface with it with its power and capabilities. And thanks to lithium ion and amazing electronics, sensors, controls, what I have behind me is an entire solar powered kitchen. Literally all the appliances that get you through the ability to cook, to cool, like as a solar powered refrigerator, to clean. We have like a kitchen sink here. We have a way to purify water, charge electronics, of course, light, and of course, we have a new invention that helps to brew coffee. So all those essential needs done without burning any fuel, without using ice. So there's no refueling, resupplying.
That's awesome. Now, what sparked the idea to create these products?
Well, going way back, when I was 8, I had a little store inside a honeysuckle bush, and I was working with the neighborhood kids to sell clay pots and things to the neighborhood mothers. And we had the creek really cleaned up that year. We had fish and amphibians running throughout the creek and throughout the neighborhood, and things were really alive. And then one of the older, like teenager boys who was new to automobile maintenance and everything, he took the engine oil change and he poured it into the creek to get rid of it, and it decimated all of the life that we had built throughout that creek. And that turned me into an environmentalist overnight, realizing the impact that we can have and how kind of stupid humans can be. And then in high school, I started finding out about the bigger impacts of our pollution. The word climate change didn't really exist back then, but I was always thinking, like, we got to get ourselves out of this mess that we're creating, and found solar shortly thereafter. And I've been working with solar for the last 20 years, trying to get it to power our lives and maintain our comforts and culture without compromise, to convenience and performance, and come up with really groovy, efficient, easy to use, durable, reliable products.
That's awesome.
It's crazy because I think the misconception over the years is that solar power is cool, but it hasn't really been powerful enough to run the everyday appliances. And what really got me interested about your stuff was you didn't just take solar power and apply it to yesterday's technology, right? Because yesterday's technology isn't efficient enough. Everything that you've built is efficient to use with that solar technology. And I thought that was amazing. I don't understand. And this is what happens with innovation. You always sit there and you're like, why wasn't this done sooner? Why
No,
didn't
it's
someone
so
else think
true.
of it?
Our dominant culture kind of makes us believe that we have to have things the way they are, and the way they are in America typically is very high impact, high energy, lots of internal and externalized costs in all of our moves. Um, there's reasons for that, and we all take great joy in most of it. But it's surprising what we can do when we use a lens of efficiency, and try to make sure that when we make efficiency changes, we're not also changing again the comfort or convenience level. So, like for example, with this water purification and sanitation, this little sink that we invented, this uses 1/10 of the water of a typical faucet at your house. But that little bit, like I ran around for a month with different faucets, trying to, this was during COVID, during the beginning of COVID, wash my hands really, really well with the minimal amount of water, and still know that they are super duper clean. And I found that you only need a liter per minute instead of 5 gallons per minute.
Right.
It's stuff like that where it's like, since we're all used to 3 to 5 gallons a minute come out of a faucet, we all think that's the only way to do it. And what you don't realize is that you're just wasting huge amounts of water. If that water is heated, you're going to be wasting huge amounts of energy.
Right.
And you're living in this kind of super excess, lap of luxury. And
Right.
again, that's great, but like all you're trying to do is wash your hands
That's it.
or
Yeah.
wash a few dishes. Like it's not that hard.
So how did you get to, I guess, connecting those dots? How did you get from, okay, I know that I want to do something with the environment, something that's good for the environment, and then taking it to the next step where you're like, okay, we have this big source of energy. How do I make that realistic? How do I implement it where it's actually able to be used in everyday technology? Because a lot of people have tried to use solar technology for a lot of different things, and I think that even some of the technology that you show, like, it's completely different from whatever everyone else has on the market. Like, how did you connect those dots from, environmentally friendly to, I'm going to do solar power? And usually solar power is that roadblock that you kind of just hit. How did you get to that next step where, okay, if there's nothing on the market to deal with the solar power that I want, how do I create that world?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an ad hoc inventor, which means I got lucky on a number of levels. But ultimately, to answer that, I mean, I think it goes back to spending a lot of time in the wilderness, kind of more in remote environments, off grid environments. I lived in the Caribbean for about 4 years, and the story we were just talking about water. I was thinking about a friend of mine who I lived on his sailboat for about a month, and sailboats are super limited on fresh water when you're out at sea, and so you have to be super careful when you use that water. And so he used to say, "Stop washing the dishes. They're clean enough, man." Things like that have been sources of inspiration for me to build out what I consider as just like highly resourceful, practical uses of sun. When it comes to our stove, which was kind of our first major innovation, I was working on a solar hot. I actually removed a solar hot water heater from a rooftop, and instead of throwing it in the dumpster, I brought it home to start playing with it. And it was composed of tubes like this that were about 6 feet long. There's like 20 of them in an array. And I'm looking at the tube, and again, I'm basically just a tinkerer. I just like to build stuff. And I threw hot dogs in the tube, and they sizzled on their way down. I'm like, wow, this is a killer hot dog cooker. What else could we do with this? It was originally designed for heating water. And I had done a ton of work with solar ovens prior to that. And I did a number of trips to Haiti trying to bring these like cardboard solar ovens and these satellite dish solar ovens and trying to convince women to cook their rice and beans this way. And nobody wanted to cook on these things because they were slow and bulky and sometimes even dangerous. And then, came up with this vacuum tube, and I brought some of those down, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's efficient. That's easy. I can rely on that, and it cooks in a time frame that's acceptable to the human who's hungry when they're cooking." So, ultimately, for me, it's sort of a career that kept me what I consider a barefoot architect, someone who was always out, putting things together.
So I guess one of my questions is going to be for the water. Let's go back to the water. How does it work? Like, where is it pulling the water from? How does it sanitize once it's in the bowl and you're done using it? Where does it drain? Does it get reused? Like, what is the whole process on that?
Yeah. So, we've came up with innovations to cook and cool and clean. Actually, the water thing was a huge issue, and I saw a little at CES actually a few years ago. I saw this tiny little water pump filtration system, and so I ran on that. So we take a itty bitty USB powered pump, and that's kind of the core of GoSun Flow, the water based system. And that pump, it's a diaphragm style pump, so it can lift water about 10 feet, and then once it goes through the pump, it can push it about 10 feet up. So we give you 10 feet of line on either side. Okay, on the intake side, there's a screen and a weight. So there's your kind of pre-screen, so you're not sucking up from the bottom of the pond where there's all that gunk. Comes through the little diaphragm pump, which is run by a portable power bank, the type that you could run your phone a couple of times. There's solar on the backside. You can run the pump directly on solar if you'd like. And you can plumb it through this 3-stage filter. Right now I have it removed. And the 3-stage filter does everything you want to purify water. And that's not an easy job. Taking fresh water, making it drinkable. And I can talk more about the tech that's in here. But oftentimes when you have potable water at camp or whatever, when you're just running it into the sink, you just have like a 5-gallon bucket or a gallon jug full of fresh water. You're pumping it up through the pump and then over into the sink. The sink has a little just an electronic switch that tells the power bank to give energy to the pump. So that's just a very simple little switch, and this is all run on 5-volt DC. And then this is from the robotics and kind of manufacturing world. This is called lock line, which is basically a ultra flexible faucet hose. And it's got this little clamp here, so you can put it wherever you want. You can hold it, you can put it up on a tree limb, set it up in your van life. And then we have it right now attached to a sink. This is one of those collapsible kind of camp sinks. And the sink itself would take maybe 4 or 3 gallons or something. And when that fills up with dirty soapy water, then you have to find a place to drain to put that. Oftentimes, campgrounds would have a spot so that when you pour the water out and it's full of grease or whatever, you're not going to be attracting any bears. And so you have your gray water that's remained in the sink, and you find your way to discard it. And again, you've only produced a small amount of dirty water because the whole thing is based on water conservation. And that way you're not hauling huge amounts of water to camp, and I may have said this when we spoke before, but this thing, I can actually take a really good shower in 1 gallon of water. Back to Haiti, I remember we had to take sponge baths, and I was relatively impressed how clean I could get in about 1 gallon of water. But a sponge was just a whole different experience versus actually having cascading water. And in 1 gallon, I can even wash my hair. I can do the marine thing where you're turning it on and off like you do on a sailboat. And again, it's surprising how little we actually need when we give ourselves a little bit better, clearer context of the goal is sanitation. The goal is not complete relaxation and luxury and have a waterfall.
So how does that mechanism work then when it's purifying when it's cleaning out the water?
So on the filter, I've got it removed from the flow case, showing this would basically go straight into a creek or a lake or whatever, anything fresh, and then there's a little nozzle on top that you can suck from. But to open this up, it's a 3-stage. So I mentioned there was a beginning stage when you're running the pump so that the pump doesn't suck up gunk from the bottom of the creek or the lake. First stage is this little polypro disc. That's just catching the large particulates that may have made their way past the screen. The next is activated charcoal, which is super interesting stuff. This is Japanese made, super fantastic way to get rid of toxins. And then this final stage is the most important, and this is basically a labyrinth type filter. This is nano alumina, and there's so many little fibers in here that bacteria and virus can't get their way out. So this is kind of the most expensive element in our filter that really saves the day. Now this filter, this is kind of considered a cartridge filter. It's a little bit different. Those life straws that are real popular now. Sawyer is another brand. These are water filters that run on these ceramic microtubes. and they have a longer lifespan, except that you have to do maintenance on them. And most people, when you buy like a Life Straw or a Sawyer, you don't realize all the maintenance that's involved. They basically recommend that after every single use, you have to back flush it with distilled water, and nobody does it. So you only get a couple uses out of them before the ceramic microtubes clog up. But with this, there's no real maintenance other than just letting it dry after use. And so these basically end up lasting the same and giving you a much easier experience because you don't have the maintenance.
Right.
So let's say it's like 10 o'clock at night and we were out on a campfire and we're all there drinking and hanging out and just chilling. And Next Level drops some chicken wings all over his shirt. So he needs some water. And you're saying it has it uses the solar to run. Does it store a charge like if it's dark at nighttime and there is no sun?
Yeah. So it has a 5,000 milliamp hour little lithium ion power bank, and since the pump only uses 2 watts, it can run that for like days. I don't know how long, but the pump is like such a non-load because it's only 2 watts that you can just run it. So you have that. You have the solar in case the power bank is lost. If somebody uses it for their phone and it never comes back, because you can kind of pull it out of the case if you want. It can also run the pump. We can run the pump directly on sunshine. So I've actually been in that situation during my R&D and stuff. I always take these products out in the wilderness for R&D. I've been in a situation where I turn it on to run the pump and then I turn it off to and literally, that's my switch. And we try to build all of our products to have that degree of versatility where they'll run directly on sunshine, they'll run on stored power like in lithium, they'll run on 12 volt, they'll run on USB, they'll run on AC power, 110 volt. So you can they're kind of create like an ecosystem so that, and we try not to be proprietary either. So whatever you might have, you can either plug into ours or charge hours with your solar panel, what have you.
So, cool.
Yeah. I love how everything looks. Now, this is obviously an assumption, but how everything looks like you can just collapse and be easy to store or put away. Like that whole design of the sink, like everything looks like it's simple enough for the average person to remove the actual flexible hose and to put everything away and compact. How compact does that sink actually go? Like how much room, if you're packing up, your trunk and your back seat with all your camping gear, you got your tent, you got everything. How much room in your vehicle would a full kitchen take?
I'm doing my little kitchen duty in the background here. So I'm getting rid of water. I'm getting rid of water that's in the line right now.
Okay.
I just pulled the intake out. Okay, so that's done. I'm gonna take the little guy off. I poured out the remaining water that was in here.
Yeah.
Okay, that collapses down
to nothing.
This guy shrinks down.
Super cool.
Okay, and then I would just kind of like a like a power cord or whatever, just coil this up, and so this thing takes maybe 4 minutes to set up. There's the little intake that we were talking about, so you can toss that in the creek or the lake, and everything other than the sink. The sink doesn't fit in here, obviously, but there is this little there's like the little water bag and then several replacement filters. The filter, I won't go through the detail of putting this back together just right. But there's kind of everything, and I can shove that close and zip it up, and you're good to go.
That's really cool. Like that doesn't take up any room at all for a sink. To think that you can travel on the go and have a sink that takes up maybe the amount of room as a large thin book, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, no, and again, it only takes a few minutes to set up too. So there's your GoSun flow. And I might often like leave the sink pop like that, okay, with the product, and then I'll throw like my sponge and soap and a rag or whatever in here. And
it has a handle. Like,
yeah, and then
amazing.
it's got the little basket handles.
I I use it like a picnic basket.
Yeah, there's your water, and then of course you need some sort of source for water. So I mean, this is going to last for, I don't know, about a minute and a half out of that, just to give you an idea of
Okay.
flow. And then just for demo purposes, I filled up and this would last, I don't know, this would last for, about 6-7 minutes. I don't know how many gallons this is, but that's quite a bit of washing, 6 or 7 minutes. And again, you can turn it on and off with that switch.
So how did you come up with your products? Like, what was the timeline like? What was the first product you were like, okay, this is essential, and then after this naturally comes that product? What did that look like?
Yeah. So it started out with this guy. This is the GoSun Sport. And from that day of finding that solar collector and putting hot dogs in it to the day I launched this on Kickstarter was quite a while. It was nearly a decade, and obviously I wasn't working on it full time, and I had several like aha moments throughout the production or the creation of this. But we launched this on Kickstarter in 2013 with about 1,000 emails, and just from people that I'd worked with in the solar industry and whatnot. And it took off kind of overnight. It did 200,000 on that first Kickstarter, and really, forced me to work on this business 110%. And I have for the last 7 years. And so for a while we were kind of fixed on cooking solutions, and there was nobody else doing this type of thing. So that was why we wanted to really, dig in deep. However, it turns out that solar cooking is such a tiny market that no matter how cool we made our products, this one's only about $100. I think we did this one next. We did another big one that we've now since discontinued, and we answered our customers' big needs with this guy about 4 years ago, and this is a hybrid, so it's got the electric backup, which no one, that was one of the biggest pushbacks we got a lot from the solar cooking space is how do you cook at night? How do you cook when there's a rainstorm? And so we solved that, but still you're cooking inside, inside an evacuated tube in this kind of tube, these horizontal configuration. We're not used to that. We're used to cooking on a cauldron over a fire. So, we realized that disrupting the cooking space, is really challenging. We don't realize how deep ingrained cooking is in our culture, in our tradition. American culture is much more willing to change, but even us, we're cooking recipes that are 1,000 years old that were handed on from our ancestors, and all cooking is done like on a cauldron over a fire, one way or another, except for the microwave. And so to disrupt and change people's desire to cook and tell them that, they can now cook outdoors in this little tray was a challenge. And indeed, we've sold, 50,000 solar stoves, which is probably as much as any company, but, that's not 5 million and 500 million. And so we realized that we had to work on other essential needs. And we saw all of this incredible technology at our fingertips, and we knew how to put together like I said before, the electronics, controls, sensors, lithium ion energy storage and power management. So our next major product launch, we started getting into into these kinds of things. This will power your cell phone, and we got into the power banks. But our next major product release would be the cooler down here. Which is basically a portable fridge that has a built-in compressor, And the efficiency of this compressor is completely mind blowing. It's unlike what the old like car fridges would have. They run on like thermoelectric, and so they could only create like a 40-degree temperature differential. So if you have a 90-degree day, the food inside's only 50. These have full control on down to well below freezing.
Wow.
And we knew we could solar power it because again, that's what we do. So we paired that with that power bank that I was just showing this guy with this 30-watt solar panel. And, and again, it sort of took off and we thought, well, shoot, we can just keep looking for appliances to power and meeting essential needs. So now that we have cooling, what's next? And so that's where like cleaning and the sanitation thing came up with the flow, the water purification sanitation system we just went over. And then we were realizing like first thing in the morning, you still can't make enough hot water with solar to make your coffee or whatever. So we came up with this new coffee making machine, which is all in one. It's a travel mug, a French press, and a 12-volt heater. And a lot of these things came out of both what we see as our customers' needs that keep expanding, as well as like the outside forces like forest fires that were ravaging Australia and the western portion of the United States. With fire bans and stuff, often campgrounds won't let you have fires. Mm-hmm. So this is a great way to make coffee in the absence of fire. And the water sanitation thing was driven largely by COVID, when we saw sanitation becoming something we really, really needed to focus. That product was on our backlog, and we quickly accelerated its development to get it in the market. And we have several other iterations or essential needs that we're trying to meet going forward. But that's kind of how we operate. It's really just trying to stay rooted in what we know is needed out in the market.
That was so much great information. I wanted to follow up and say the solar panel that you showed us, it was a 30-watt, and then you also had the power bank, the GoSun power bank. Now, does that combination work with all of your appliances?
Yeah. So more or less, yes. Our major appliances, the oven, the GoSun Fusion, which is the solar oven, has the bagels in there, and the cooler, those are running on 12 volt when you're going electric. Obviously, the solar oven also can run directly on sunshine. Mm-hmm. And so we have 12 volt in the power bank, and we have other power banks, and they're all going to have the old classic cigarette plug. And what's neat about that is that our cigarette plug will go up to 15 amps, and most power banks will only do like 10 amps. And so you can get a lot more juice. The coffee mug also runs on that 12 volt. And then, there's all the power banks also have USB. And our newest power banks will have all the USB-C, PW, and all. We're trying to look at running some more appliances on USB-C. That I'm really excited about USB-C.
Me too.
Yeah. That universality and the way you can change power and dispatch. You could have like low, medium, and high settings very, very easily.
When I do an unboxing and I see USB-C compatibility, I'm like, welcome to 2020. Like, I know it's 2021 now, but I'm like, yes, I can use one cable for everything. I can power my phone, and you're telling me maybe I could power my fridge. Cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can run 20 volts at 5 amps. That's 100 watts. I mean, you can run a lot of stuff. You could absolutely run the refrigerator. I'm sitting on a laptop running on USB-C. Finally, Apple got their act together. Why isn't this USB-C? Mm-hmm. As far as solar, there isn't really a standard. This is 5.5 millimeter by 3.5 millimeter, and then of course there's a USB-C for charging directly from this. But to get higher amounts of power, you can't be using USB-A. USB-A, whatever, 15 watts, maybe the max. About 3 amps and 5 volts. So we have to go into like coaxial. trying to move more and more towards USB-C so we can get ubiquity across the line and everything's compatible.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to see where you guys are going with all of the USB-C and the technology that you have, because it looks like you guys are really evolving with the time. Can you tell me a little bit about how COVID-19 or the pandemic crisis affected or propelled your business? Because it sounds like some of your products was created during this time, and it was really needed. So can you tell us a little bit about how this time affected or didn't affect or made your business more successful?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of stuff's coming to a head with COVID-19, helping people realize that their backyard is a great place to enjoy, and more localized friends and family, like more fun in your own little zone. So whereas going off to Disney World or something is a lot harder to do now. So we found a lot of increase in our business because of that desire to do more fun things around home. So we're fueling family fun, and we help prepare, and the emergency preparedness, the prepper, the disaster relief, and preppers aren't necessarily just bullets and bunkers and the kind of the old style. I mean, prepping is now a third of America that thinks of themselves as somebody who at least likes to have a month's supply of, especially toilet paper, right? So those types of things became, I think, are a big reason why GoSun really accelerated in the past year. We really helped to fuel people's independence and resilience. And we're real practical and affordable into all of that. So it's not like some huge investment or commitment. If you want cooking to be solved, you can do that for as little as $100. If you want your cell phone to be charged, you can do that just $100. The cooler itself is the most expensive single line item, and there's not an easy way around that. But ultimately, I think people were jumping in their cars, and doing trips to the woods and to the campgrounds and things a lot more in the past year. And I think that trend will probably continue for some time. And that's kind of where we shine, is giving you everything you need for your off-grid, and then you don't have to go to resupply at the gas station or the grocery store. And these are places in general we all prefer to avoid. And so it's not like just because of COVID, you don't want to hang out at the gas station for half an hour trying to remember your grocery list.
Yeah. So you were talking about right now you brought up the cooler. How long, like once you get a full, or like, I'm guessing it does also hold the charge on the cooler, or is it just strictly on the solar panel also?
Yeah, it holds. The coolers come with this 144 watt hour power bank, and they live on the cooler in a series of pouches in the back, and all your power cords has AC adapters, so it can run on wall socket, and all of that stuff can live on board the cooler. We're working on another cooler that'll actually have an integrated battery as well as an external battery, so you can really change to your habits. So if you're going to plan to be off grid for 3 days, you can get enough battery to do that. Of course, we encourage you to also get solar so that you can be, your battery size. Really, when you're off grid, you're living on battery. You're not living on solar. So you have to basically make sure that solar is going to recharge the battery in a day. So generally our solar panels are designed to kind of match the battery's needs. In 1 day's sun, you can get a full charge. And if you don't have sun for that day, you could be out of luck, in which case you might want a second battery. Another big thing on the cooler is the temperature settings. So for example, if you want to run freezing cold, ice cream and take it out to the kids' game, you're going to need to run the compressor full time. The compressor pulls about 35 watts. Now, after 3 hours or so, this 144 watt hour power bank is going to be pretty low. Uh, so basically, you're going to need 2 or 3 of these if you're going to want to keep ice cream for a day. And then if you're just doing like veggies, say for example, you just want to keep a bunch of greens in there from your garden for for a few days at 60 degrees or 55 degrees Fahrenheit, you can do that because the compressor is only going to kick on for 5 minutes every hour. So you can do that for days and days. Really, for me, like I'm usually running it at about 40 or 37 degrees Fahrenheit, so I can have some pretty cold beer, but I'm not going to like freeze the veggies and the cheese and stuff. And I can run the chill, our solar powered refrigerator on this guy, this 144 watt hour power bank for about 15 hours. So I would need 2 of these if I'm going to plan on using it day after day. One of them will be charging with the sun. One of them will be running the cooler, and so that's kind of the way it shakes out. It's obviously every environment, how cold are you running the cooler? That all big
how bright is the sun?
Yeah. How well are you oriented to the sun? Like if you just put this thing flat, in the summer that might be fine, but in the winter, you should probably hang it. So you want the panels to be perpendicular to the sun.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I know in California we get a lot of blackouts, a lot of rollouts. It'll be perfectly fine. There's no earthquakes or fires or anything with the natural elements, and they'll say, hey, we're going to be doing a blackout where you're going to be losing power in your area or whatever. It's going to save whatever millions of dollars or wattages or amps or preventing fires, or there's just so much stuff out here in California that they always give us an excuse of why they're doing it. So there's like all kinds of conspiracy theories about all that stuff, but for me, I think we're really, really lucky. We're literally, where we live, if you go about, I don't know, maybe a block to the left or a block to the right, they're the ones that always get hit. And it's usually about a mile or 2 that way, and it's weird. Everybody in our street, and there's maybe a street on the other side, we're always the ones that were just like, okay, is it going to affect us? And for whatever reason, it doesn't. It's very, very rare. If it does affect us, it affected everybody from the left and the right and the middle, but it's usually one side or the other side. And the very few times that it has happened has always, 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 always been when we're cooking. Like literally, we're there and everything shuts off, and we're just like, okay. And I'm just like, well, let me pull out the grill, So with I guess the cookers that you have, it looks super neat. It looks very, very cool. Does it run also? Let's just say I know during the daytime you could run the solar. Can you also use that exact same battery pack to cook on that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now the heating element, so that plug in, the same plug is what's on the cooler and the coffee maker. The heating element is going to pull. It's 1 ohm, which means it pulls 12 amps at 12 volts or 13 amps at 13 volts. So that's quite a lot of power. So it's about 150 watts, and it'll cook a meal about the same speed as the sun. It's a little bit slower, so it'll take about an hour and a half to cook a meal, depending on the meal, of course. And all of the heat is on the bottom when you're running it on electric mode. So it is hard to do things that are like breads and stuff. You have to flip them so you don't burn on the bottom. But our food cooks in a really high moisture environment with heat generally from all around, especially when you're solar cooking. And as you can see, the food is then sealed when it's inside in the tube. It stays in there.
Mhm.
And so the juices and the flavors really stay with the food and help it really be a very natural flavor, a little bit like a crock pot. So you can do things like frying. Obviously it's great for baking. You can do pastas and steaming, but the one thing that's hard to do is like the grill where you have 700 degrees and fire lapping up against the fats and the meats and getting that blackened carcinogenic stuff that we all love. You can't really blacken meat inside a GoSun because it's so steamy. You can get it to go through the Maillard reaction, which is where the fats start to burn and you get that browning on the food. So that runs. Since the heater there pulls quite a bit of power, you do need to use the larger power supply through that 12-volt port. But you can find that this is the interesting thing is 12-volt is kind of a dying deal, but we don't feel that way at GoSun. Every car ever made since the 1950s has one. Every boat, every truck, every RV. 12-volt is, most 12-volt appliances are kind of crummy. I don't disagree with that. They're sort of poorly built and they fall apart. We build high quality 12-volt appliances that'll last forever. And so we think 12-volt is sweet. The other cool thing about going 12-volt is there's very few regulations in that space. AC powered devices require UL listing and CE and all this intense expense. They're more dangerous. 12-volt is super safe. I mean, you can put your tongue on 12-volt. It's not going to hurt. No one's ever complained about a 12-volt shock.
It's a little bit worse than a 9-volt battery. And who hasn't put their tongue on a 9-volt battery? So, you know what? We've talked about so much different things, from how you came up with the ideas, the different products. It sounds so cool that I'm a little bit interested in what does the research and development look like for the future. Like, you have all these amazing products, and it sounds like you said it yourself. You're a tinkerer. You always want to play around with stuff. You're always looking to see how you can change it up, make things more efficient, maybe come up with new products. What does that look like with your company? Like, do you guys just take in customer feedback saying, hey, I'd like my fridge to do this, or I'd like an oven to do this, or how does that process look with GoSun?
Yeah, we do try to ask as much as we can from our customers. We send them surveys and get their feedback and try to be as open and increase the amount of feedback as much as possible. So for example, with the cooler, people are losing stuff in the cooler, the way it's constructed. People would prefer to have more control, surprisingly, because as soon as you start using this cooler, you're like, why was I using ice and lugging around one of those Yetis? Like, it's so much better because ice takes up 50% of the volume in your cooler. It melts and crushes everything. Once the water's in there, forget about meats or cheeses or anything vegetable, fruit. This thing stays dry, stays organized. You can put your hand in there and find what you're looking for. So anyway, long story short, with our next cooler, we're looking to put the compressor on the bottom instead of the top, and we're looking to create 2 zones. So you'll have the ability to have like your fridge and your freezer. So you can have ice cream, or you can have your ultra cold beer. Like I like having the coldest beer in camp sometimes just to mess with people. People are so funny, my friends included. That they rip on you when you show up with this new $700 cooler, and then they're like, 2 days, day 2, they got to go back to the gas station to get ice, and I'm like ripping on them. And the whole time I've got this like 28-degree ice cold beer. I mean, it's practically slushy, and I just think it's so much fun. I love giving them one of these. beer, that's one of the things the American beer industry figured out. Beer tastes better when it's refreshingly cold, even crummy tasting beer. So, so we'll have those two zones. And so now you can stack a 12 pack in at, 28 degrees and then have the rest of the zone for things, that don't need to be that cold. That's just one example. The table, I don't know if you saw the back. This is a solar powered table. That was something people were telling us. They're like, I want somewhere to put my cooler so it's not in the sun, but I still want to charge it. Oh, put the cooler underneath the table, and the table becomes your power source, and then you can use it as a surface too. We have a bunch of these. We have this Facebook community kitchen, and a bunch of our users are constantly sharing little hacks and recipes and ideas. So out of that community, I can't find them right here, but we came up with these silicone cups that you can cook in, and that way you can put a dollop of muffin mix or something and have like an easy way to get it in and out of the tray. And if you do that in the morning, then you can throw the eggs in immediately after without having any kind of cleanup in between.
That's so cool.
Plastic waste. I don't know if I got to show you guys these. This is the world's smallest set of portable utensils. So this was this actually came from our lead designer, and he was walking down he'd just gone to the grocery store and got a salad from the salad bar, and unfortunately had to pick up that set of plastic utensils. And he's like, man, every day I could be throwing out a set of plastic utensils, or I could, and he was looking like he's not carrying a purse or backpack. He's like, where could I have these utensils on my person? And he realized that, it's basically in his wallet. So that's a fork, a spoon, and the spoon has a little serrated edge, which is actually quite capable of getting stuff done. I mean, the spoon's obviously not a big soup spoon, but these are really fun, and it's another one of GoSun's inventions. And coming from a place where there's a huge issue with plastic, single-use plastic is just kind of gross. It's sort of ridiculous, and so why not have something that lives with you in your purse or wallet at all times, and you'll never have to grab that.
It's crazy because the single-use plastic utensils is like such a crazy environment. Like you put all this money to make this product to use it one time and just to throw it out. There's so much plastic. It can't be good for the environment. I just wanted to ask you one last thing really quickly. This is just a fun question. If we were in like a zombie apocalypse, or we were in a pandemic and we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't do anything, we were stranded somewhere, maybe for 2 days, how many batteries would we need, and what equipment would you take? Do you have like a zombie apocalypse a bundle or something like that? Just really quickly, I'm just curious.
My first question back to you is, are we in a zombie apocalypse?
We could be. I don't know yet. We'll find out maybe in a month.
This is our newest power bank, the Power Bank 266. We rate our power banks based on watt hours, watts or watts, no matter you're talking about AC or DC, no matter what the voltage or the amperage is. So I know that everyone gets confused around all that voltage, amperage, amp hours, blah, blah, blah. Watts are the thing to look for. And we'll have explainers more and more as we get into this space throughout GoSun.co. But this guy would basically do the job, and I would pair it with a solar panel or two, so that you can stay, you can just keep it charged up, right? So that new power bank can accept quite a bit of power from the sun, from the solar table, and it's got a lot of juice. For example, this can charge the standard laptop, I believe it's around 10 times, and it can charge a standard cell phone around 20. I can't remember exactly, but it'll run the cooler for 24 hours without any recharge. So I guess if you wanted to say, if there was no sun during this, it was a fire or something like that, and you couldn't see the sun, then you'd want two of these. You kind of want one of these per day to 100% run your needs. And that would be the cooler, possibly some cooking. You'd be able to charge your communication devices, have some basic lighting, maybe brew some coffee in the morning. So that and that's the smallest sort of compact, horsepower to weight type of thing. In that kind of a bug out scenario, you'd want to be able to stay pretty lean. So you probably wouldn't bring the entire table. But no, it's a question that we get all the time, and we do have like prep kit bundles that are designed to go together. And we're building like cases or packaging so you can keep everything in one spot. Like we have this new EVA case that holds the brew and 2 power banks and 2 solar panels. So now you have all of those needs met. Then you'll have to get the fusion. This is the ovens are extremely durable, and easy to move. This is about 12 pounds. It's a little bit more right now because I've got food in it, but and the legs collapse down, so everything's very simple to, it's very tough, despite the fact that the tube's made out of a glass. It's a Pyrex glass. It's a borosilicate, so it is really capable of taking some dings.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Well, I'm super excited to get my hands on this stuff. Look at that.
Yeah, so that's the GoSun Fusion, and so it really does do a good job. That's our latest and greatest. It has this like suspension system for the tube. It's this red silicone, so that if the tube gets jostled, it's really well sort of suspended by some like shock absorbent material.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Well, I will say the stuff that you guys have is pretty amazing. We're living in some times right now that we don't know what's going to happen the next day. So, yeah, I guess where can we find your products right now? Where can we go to find them?
Yeah, GoSun.co is our website, and we're always trying to run specials and put bundles together for people, taking feedback to come up with the best solutions. And the website's built real simple, where you can see like ovens, coolers, water, charging, lighting, depending on what you're interested, what you need to do. And we do have the entire bundle. I think like this entire kit is around $2,000. Maybe it's a little less because it may not include all the stuff that you see here. But yeah, we're GoSun.co and sign up on our email subscription. We're often doing promotions and new product launches. We do have a bunch of exciting ones. I'm not going to get too deep into what our next product launches are, but appreciate the question, Next Level. And we have some pretty breaking. We did launch a tiny house back in 2020, which is an all-inclusive, solar powered tiny house. So all you need there is a big truck to pull it, and you can pretty much park it anywhere. It has its onboard water, has its onboard heating and cooling, has its onboard power system. So it's fairly, we're trying to make things easy for people without, again, compromising convenience and performance.
I know you can't talk about all that stuff now, but I'm super excited to hopefully have you back when we can talk about those products either right before they launch or as they launch, or maybe we'll see you at the next TechFluence or CES. I'm hoping that we have another conversation before then. So everybody, don't forget to check the description if you're looking to go beyond with GoSun. We're going to have all the links in the description below. You guys can check it out. Even if you're not in the market right now, I highly suggest just signing up on their email list, because I'm super excited to see what they're coming out with. You're going to want to stay in the know. So yeah, like check them out. Everything's going to be there, and sign up for their mailing list for sure. Don't forget to leave us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast, or leave us a comment if you're watching us on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, and well, with all that being said, thank you, Patrick, for coming on to the podcast show. This has been great. This has been very informative for all you people out there that loves to go camping or just loves to have some fun in the backyard. Even, you don't have to go out there. This is a really cool thing to have, and even if you're not a big camper, this is just good to have just in case anything were to happen. You never know. I think everybody's like building their survival kits right now, so it'll be really good for you listeners out there to get something like this, like solar stuff. Actually, is just the way to go. Patrick, thank you one more time for coming.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody out there listening, make sure you guys do check the description. And with all that being said, hope you guys have a good one. Take care of each other. We'll see you guys soon. Peace out.
Thanks, Rohas. Thanks, Next Level.
Thanks, man.